In the decaying days of fall, you said you wanted it all. You knew the times when it got dark were when we were happy as larks. To think of leaves and birthday rain, Halloween and whistling train.
Hello and welcome to Kids Camp Presents. Today I have two guests from Greentown Los Altos, a grassroots initiative for businesses and residents of Los Altos whose mission is to encourage living a more sustainable life. Welcome. So I would like to introduce Margaret Suozzo, the chair of the leadership team, and Mike McTighe, the chair of the Bike and Walk program. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christiana.
So I would like to know, what are the areas where you influence the regional sustainability?
So you mentioned that part of our goal is to educate and inspire the people of Los Altos as well as Los Altos Hills to take action that will make our community more environmentally healthy and vibrant. So those areas in which we work include a bike walk program where we're trying to encourage people, school children, commuters to bike and walk around town to school, to work, and so on. And water stewardship. We have a water stewardship program which focuses on water conservation and on pollution prevention in our creeks and in the bay. And an energy program, and we also have a waste reduction program. Those are the four main areas. There are other areas that people are interested in, like sustainable food, and we'll dabble in those, but our primary areas are those four.
So in the bike program, what sort of initiatives do you have?
Sure. Well, in the bike program, we're really working on, first of all, working with the students of Los Altos to get them to feel empowered that they could ride their bikes to work or ride their bikes to school and to walk as well, rather than being driven by their parents. And the second thing is that we're also working with local residents to try to get them to use their bike to get to work. And the last thing is that we try to promote both those through fun activities in town, such as we have a historic bike ride coming up on the September 29th, but also to do sustainable bike tours around town, just to kind of get people out of the car and to think about, like, if you're like a mile away from something, you can probably ride your bike much faster than you can drive your car.
And when you think about it, you're biking and walking, you're living more healthy lives if you're biking and walking around town. If you are interacting with your neighbors more, so it builds community. So we try to do things that really help to create more community, both in the downtown, in the school community, as well. One of our great initiatives in the Bike Walk program is the Drive Less Challenge, which was actually started in Menlo Park and by a number of folks in Menlo Park. And they extended the challenge to a number of other communities over the course of a period of years. And last year, this is a 2-week challenge where we asked people to get out of their car, out of their, and ride their bikes, walk, take transit during that 2-week period and log the miles where they did green travel rather than solo car travel. And Los Altos and Los Altos Hills won the challenge last year and saved a lot of greenhouse gas emissions in the process, built community. We had a fabulous party at the end of it to try and celebrate that win. And we worked with local retailers and merchants to get prizes for people. So there are wonderful prizes that the winners in various different categories won.
Oh, so, that's great.
Yeah, that's fun.
When I was in Denmark a few years ago, I remember that they had bike stations, and you could rent a bike from one of the stations, and you could drive around town, and then leave the bike at another station across town. So is something like that viable for our community?
We actually have a summer intern working on exactly that same idea, which is a bike share program, so that a commuter coming in, maybe from Caltrain, can take a bike right into Los Altos, do what they need to do, and then bring it back. And there's really a lot of other cities, Washington, Oregon, that have done that same concept and have done it successfully. So we're looking at trying to do that. And what we found is that the County of Santa Clara is is having a pilot program to do exactly that in certain areas of the train stations, so that they can share the different, a bike, somebody commuting down from San Francisco could get off at one of the stations, maybe like Mountain View, and then take a bike and ride it around.
And if we had connecting stations in Los Altos, we have 7 different commercial business districts. There may be a number of which where we could have a bike share option for people that integrates with this larger system. So that's being studied. We're hoping that we'll find out some great information from when our intern is finished with that project.
So maybe next year we'll be talking to you about the bike sharing program.
Oh, that would be great. I would love that. I would love to have that opportunity to do that. The same thing that, it's available in New York City, as you mentioned, in Washington and Europe.
Right. My kids and I went, and my husband went to D.C. this summer. It was 104 degrees, and I have little ones who can't quite fit on the bikes that they had, but I really love that bike share program. It just see everybody using it from place to place, and it's very exciting.
That sounds great. Yeah. So what about, you also mentioned water as and water conservation as part of your initiatives.
Right.
So what are those?
So our water stewardship program really has 2 elements. One is a water conservation focus. As you may know, climate change threatens the water supplies in our area. I mean, we are in a relatively dry climate to begin with, but a lot of the water that we get in our area is stored in the Sierra Nevada mountains in the winter time, and then is released as it melts in the spring and the summer, so that in our dry, hot summers we have a reservoir of water from which to drink, feed our plants, whatever we do with our water, right? So that snowpack, which stores that water, is threatened by climate change. There is a lot of indication from the global climate models that we'll see a sizable reduction in the amount of water stored in the Sierra Nevadas. So we want to make sure that people now are conserving so that our future generations don't have to struggle with lack of water. So we address that by recommending water-wise audits. The Santa Clara Valley Water District offers free house calls to people to give them a water-wise audit, which takes a look at their irrigation system and their domestic water use and makes recommendations as to how to reduce that water use.
What would be some of these recommendations?
So a major recommendation is that 50 to 80% of our water, that's water that gets shipped to us, filtered and treated, is used to water our lawns, right? So one major recommendation is shifting to lawns or landscaping that uses less water. Drought-tolerant plants, native plants, those sorts of plants use a lot less water, and there's irrigation systems that are more efficient as well. Drip irrigation systems release water just to the plant and so on. So that's sort of one example of some of the conservation efforts that we're recommending. I mean, there are others, low-flow shower heads and low-flow faucets and toilets. Those are a couple of the things that you might do indoors. But the real big hit in our area is the outdoors. So that's where we make our push for water conservation.
And part of that, we've worked at Redwood, was it Grove? I forgot the name.
Yeah, Redwood Grove. Redwood
Grove, that to actually create a garden of just exactly what Margie was talking about, that the planning is done so that it's drought resistant, and there's a berm that to show how that slowing the water flow down can actually help, because that water, instead of running off into the street and running off into the bay, can actually percolate into the ground and help replace our groundwater.
Yeah, so in addition to that sort of water conservation ask, which is do a water-wise audit. If you own a home, if you rent a home, you can get a free water-wise call from the county. We also do some demonstrations, and we do some do-it-yourself workshops to try and help people understand. If you're going to irrigate with water, why not irrigate with rainwater? Why transport your water from far away, filter it, treat it and then pour it on your lawn. Instead, you could capture rainwater, and you could keep more water in your on your property, either a catchment pond or an underground storage of water, or rain barrels. And so we've done a demonstration project, as Mike mentioned, at Redwood Grove along those lines.
So what's involved in capturing the rainwater? How hard would it be for me to do something like that?
It's
for
so
my house?
easy. It's so easy. I mean, they're at least for simple systems, rainwater harvesting systems. You put a couple of barrels in. You connect them. You raise them maybe on a couple of bricks. You connect them to the home, and any water coming off of a roof, if you have a gutter, connect a pipe to the gutter into the rainwater and into the rain barrels, and you have several rain barrels maybe in parallel. And you can collect quite a bit of water. Your roof can produce a lot of rainwater, and it's actually challenging with rain barrels to collect as much water as a roof will produce.
It was interesting. I was in Australia. This was probably back in the 80s, and they had, his house had done that. They had taken like a big oil tanker kind of thing that we would store oil in, and they actually had all the water coming off the roof into this tank, and they were using it to water the entire landscape around the house. It was just amazing.
There are interesting technologies. There are cisterns that are fairly big and fairly expensive, but if it's a new construction project, it's something that people should consider. There are these bladders that go underneath in the crawl space. They're big old polypropylene or something bags that store the rainwater for use. So there are additional technologies too, but simply, you could do it in a day.
What about capturing gray water from the laundry, for example?
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. So that's another do-it-yourself workshop that we do. We do one on rainwater harvesting and another on gray water. And if you check our website, you can find out the dates for that. Those are not scheduled at the moment. You can imagine you do laundry, maybe, I don't know, you have a son. How many times do you do laundry a week?
Maybe twice a week. Yeah.
Twice a week. Okay, most of us do a little more laundry than that. I think DOE's average is for a family of 4, 9, 10 times a week.
Okay.
So you imagine how much water is produced from 9 or 10 loads of laundry, that water going out. If you use safe detergents, you can easily, and your site is designed well enough for the system. For example, your washing machine is near an outside wall. You can easily retrofit that system and send water out to your landscape. Generally, we did this in the spring. We did it at someone's house, and we had 24 people at the workshop because they were all interested in maybe doing this at home. And in a day, and granted there was some pre-digging that was done, but in a day we installed this whole system. The owner turned on the water at the end of the day, turned on our laundry machine, and we watched it come out and water these 3 different mulch basins that we had created. It was fabulous.
But you have to use a certain detergent, right? You cannot just use any.
Right.
And more
environmentally
ecologically,
friendly.
Exactly.
yeah.
Okay. There's a list of those that folks who do gray water installations recommend.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that sounds.
So in addition to that, we talked about the conservation end of things. How do you reduce the amount of domestic water that you're using on your landscape? In addition to that, our water stewardship program focuses on pollution, trash in our creeks and in the bay. And so we have adopted a section of Permanente Creek in Los Altos, which is a big diversion channel. It was a concrete diversion channel that was built for flood mitigation purposes. It diverts Permanente Creek into Stevens Creek, which has a larger capacity for stream flow. And we take that ditch twice a year. We do a creek cleanup. That's part of our agreement. And we find all sorts of things in there. Sometimes the Girl Scouts help. Girl Scout troops will come on the creek cleanup. And one year we had a group of maybe 8, 9-year-olds with a giant pipe, and we find bike locks. But the predominant trash that you find in the creeks is in our area is plastic bags, plastic bottles, toothbrushes, whatever. And if this is in our creeks, it goes out to the bay. And if it goes out to the bay, it often floats out into the Pacific, into the Great Pacific Gyre. which is an area where currents come together and swirl, and used to be and still is, unfortunately, a feeding ground for a lot of birds and a lot of marine mammals. So the albatross is one of the case studies for the plastic pollution problem, because it's a bird that flies from Midway Island, which is midway between the U.S. and the Pacific,
Asia.
Yeah. And it flies probably 25 miles to get food for its young. It generally goes to this North Pacific gyre, picks out a bunch of plastic, brings it home, feeds its babies, and these babies, when there are pictures of them, opened up with plastic in their guts and, dead from plastic. So if that doesn't make you feel like you need to do something about the plastic problem, you need to wean yourself off plastic, I don't know what does. So that's part of our goal in Greentown as well, is reducing plastic use.
Well, San Francisco was the first American city to ban plastic bags in grocery stores and chain pharmacies. And then Palo Alto followed, and San Jose as well. How about Los Altos? And I'm sure you were at the forefront of this initiative as well. Isn't that right?
Well, we did introduce it a couple of years ago, and it went nowhere.
But there seems to be a lot more people interested now, and I know that there's a bag ban that the city council is looking at, I think this coming up, to bag, at least in all the grocery stores, to eliminate the plastic bags. And
San Mateo County is actually leading that effort, which is interesting because we're in Santa Clara County, but they've invited cities who want to get involved in a ban into their effort. So they're in the process of doing an environmental impact report, which is not required according to a lawsuit that happened a year or two ago. It's no longer required to do an environmental impact report to get a bag ban, but they're doing it to be more thorough and on the safe side. And in any case, they're intending to put that out to the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors in October. And if the Board of Supervisors passes it, then it's a carte blanche for all the communities that are signed on to the San Mateo County effort to go forward with an ordinance for a bag ban, and Los Altos is among them. Yeah, Los Altos Hills doesn't have a commercial district, so it's not. They're not.
And I was going to mention one thing that a common person could do is just recycle their bags. I mean, if you go to the grocery store and you buy fruit and vegetables, that bag is usually quite good to use again and again and again. So if you just remember,
bring your reusable for crying out loud.
and bring your reusable bag. I mean, there's so many easy things that people could do today without much effort to actually reduce the amount of plastic that's being used in our society.
What about
There's something like 20 billion plastic bags produced and consumed in California each year.
Wow.
That's shocking, right?
Shocking,
That's just plastic bags. And, one reusable bag can, I think the statistic is something like can replace 5,000 plastic bags. I mean, just think about your impact.
Yeah. What about the grocery stores charging for bags? Is that something that, I mean, the businesses have to change as well. So not just the consumer, but it has to be an overall change. Right?
So the trick there, in my opinion, and the reason why we're supporting the bag ban is because the businesses are not inclined to do something that's going to hurt them. So if I'm Safeway, I'm not necessarily going to charge for bags if Draeger just down the street is not going to charge for bags, right? So unless you can get all of them to agree to doing this as a public policy measure, then I really think the only way to go is the bag ban. That said, charging for bags has been a very effective way to reduce them. So if the San Mateo County came back, or the city of Los Altos came back and said, well, we're not going to pass a bag ban, but we will pass a bag use fee, and we will require all grocery stores to apply a fee to bag use, that's fine. Yeah, and that would have the same impact. I think the statistics in Ireland, which was one of the first places to do that, was 95% reduction in bag use within the first couple of months.
And what's interesting, it's kind of a segue, but styrofoam's the same thing, right? We have a lot of styrofoam in our community, and it doesn't degrade. And we've been using, it's our compostable material. But this to get the business owners to use something like this. Now, this is a compostable material, which means that when it goes into the landfill, it will degrade and it will dissolve into the earth very quickly, versus styrofoam, which will stay there for centuries.
And what is that made of?
This is made of bagasse, which is wheat straw and sugarcane fiber. So it's completely, you can make it out of many different things, but that's what this is. This is from World Centric. Greentown has an agreement with World Centric, which is a local distributor of compostable products. They're right in Palo Alto. We have a deal with them where we can get a significant discount because we have an anchor buyer, Epicurean Group, which purchases a lot of compostables and enables us to work off of their contract basically to offer this to other food service establishments. Wholesale prices for these compostables. So Greentown, as far as our waste program is concerned, we want to get rid of single-use packaging, right? If you can bring your own containers, bring your own containers. Bring your own reusable bag to the grocery store, bring your own container to the not for takeout food so much, but if you're going to dine in and you can put your own food in a container, they won't generally do that. It's against health codes to do it in the back of the restaurant. So for takeout, this is our solution. We're offering restaurants an option to purchase at a very reasonable price compostable products in lieu of styrofoam.
And what I was going to bring up is that what's interesting is that there are cities that actually ban styrofoam, and so there are companies that have, I'm thinking like Jamba Juice, or they actually have businesses in those cities. They have to use compostable materials, and yet in Los Altos, where it's not banned, they won't. And we don't understand why, you know, a business wouldn't just make it unilaterally across their whole organization.
Cost.
It's cheaper.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what. And
Yeah.
so when you talk about the bag ban, you talk about styrofoam. It's that whole thing about costs and trying to get people to say, well, is it worth that much more, or to make something great for the planet?
So our goal with this program, with the Greentown Co-op, as we call it, was in fact to reduce that cost barrier. So we offer them at a lower cost.
Okay.
But and any food service establishment can kind of take advantage of that. So they just need to look on our website under the business co-op, and they can find out more information.
Let's talk trash. So a great amount, maybe even more than 50% of our waste that goes to landfill is comprised of organic material that could be compostable. And yet we are not necessarily that vigilant in ensuring that we're filling our compostable sort of bin and so forth. So what are some of your initiative in this area?
Yeah, one of the main things that we did when we first started, when Greentown first started, is we looked around at the waste system. Los Altos was considering a new contract, or going to be considering a new contract for its waste hauling. And they'd been in the same contract for 50 years or so. And we'd worked with that contractor to try and encourage some changes as well. But the opportunity for a new franchise waste hauler was very exciting. So we put a lot of our effort into that. Los Altos Hills actually had already done a great job hiring Green Waste, who may be your waste hauler, I don't know. And they are fabulous, do a great job with compostables. What we did was we put together a report that looked at what our waste was in Los Altos. I can't answer your question about organic specifically because it was a while ago that we did that research, but I think it's more like 40% is organics. And a lot of that organics was going into the trash. So one of our main recommendations was we need good composting. And the current waste hauler provides fabulous composting services, recycling services, single stream recycling. So you can put it all in one bin, which tends to increase participation rates by a lot. People are happy to be able to put it in one place and not have to separate all of their trash, all of their recycling. And as a result, their trash bins can be much smaller. They can pay less for lower volume trash cans. So we made a list of 10 recommendations to the city. They adopted all of our recommendations. We asked for a 75% recycling rate. The franchise waste hauler came back with a bid to the city, which was 78% diversion of materials from the landfill. So 78% of the materials that they collect don't go to the landfill. They go to recycling or composting, which is fantastic.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
What about your energy initiatives? I know that you were looking into energy efficiency, more spread use of solar. Tell me more about those.
So, so jump in anytime.
No, that's fine.
So we
Well, I was just going to start out. We created this year, was our first initiative was working with the other cities to do the solar program so that homeowners could get an audit for their home and then look at getting solar panels and such at a reduced rate.
Yeah, we worked with a number of other communities to and got set up a request for proposal to with the interest of 100 potential buyers. So 100 potential buyers said, yeah, we'd like to have somebody come and tell us how much it's going to cost us to get solar. With that interest, we were able to get 7 respondents to the RFP. And several of them with very good offers on a lower cost solar option. And the one that won the bid was REC Solar, which is an excellent company, and they provided, now this program is over now, it was a 3-month program and it just was fantastic. They provided solar panels for $4.25 a watt, which is about $1 a watt less than what you could get in the market. And we had a couple of people evaluating this independently to try and look at how good a deal we were getting. So we were very, very pleased with the deal, and there was a lot of uptake in Los Altos and Los Altos Hills for this. So the second piece of that focuses on the renewable side of things, but the cheapest way to get energy savings is really energy efficiency. And in the energy efficiency arena, one of our focuses is on a high-tech solution to a low-tech problem for the most part. And that high-tech solution is an online energy audit software developed by someone from Los Altos Hills, Steve Schmidt, who has a company called High Energy Audits. And what you can do is within 15 minutes, if you have a PG&E smart meter and you've lived in your home for 12 months, you can use this software. Greentown offers it free for 50 residents of Los Altos. Los Altos Hills is funding some for Los Altos Hills. So if you're in either of these communities, you absolutely should do this. In 15 minutes, you can get a sense of your energy use. What's your baseline energy use? What's always on? What's your winter heating? What's your summer cooling look like? And so on. And you get a beautiful picture with some specific recommendations on what you can do. And one of the things that you can do is, consumer electronics are becoming more and more an energy sucker in our world. And there are simple smart strips that you can use to significantly reduce those vampire loads, as they're called.
Well, that's fantastic. Yeah. It seems that you're having tremendous success in all your initiatives in energy and water and waste and bike and run program. I thank you so much for your time today and for providing us with very fascinating statistics and information. So thank you again.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Goodbye.